Hi everyone, welcome to today's tutorial where I will guide you through Dockerizing Django project step by step. By the end of this video, you will have your Django application running inside a Docker container, ready to scale and deploy effortlessly. So let's dive right in. So before we get started, first, let's talk about Docker. So Docker is a powerful tool that allows developers to containerize applications. But what does that mean? So when we're talking about containerizations, we mean bundling our application and all its dependencies into a single portable unit called container. So this ensures that your app runs the same way, whether on your local machine, testing environment, or even in production. So you will not hear something like, it works on my machine issues. So there is no more, it works on my machine issues. Before we get started, we have to make sure we have some following dependencies installed in our computer. We should make sure that we have Python, the latest version, or 3.9 to the newer version, Django the same, Docker and Docker Compose. If Docker isn't installed, we can head over to the official Docker website and download it for the operating system that you have. So you can find the links in the description below where you can find Docker and Docker Compose from the official documentation how to install it. So now let's start with the first step of the process and by creating a new Django project. So I already created here a folder called doc Django that refers to Dockerizing Django. And we'll start by creating a fresh Django project. This ensures we are working in a clean environment. So the first thing, let's create and activate a virtual environment. So this way we can isolate project dependencies from our system-wide Python packages and help us have, a clean environment for our project. So the first thing we can do here is say Python and dash m venv, and we can call our virtual environment venv. And then we can activate the virtual environment for the changes to take effect. So here I'm going to activate this environment on Windows since I'm using Windows. But if you are using Mac or Linux, you can use this command, uh, source venv here, then activate. This one works for Mac or Linux. But since we are using Windows in this tutorial, let's activate the virtual environment by typing the following command, then backslash and script, and then activate. So the next step is to install within this virtual environment Django. So to install Django, all we need to do is say pip install Django. Then let's create our first project, our empty fresh project. So we can call this something like doc Django, so we can follow the same convention here. But let's wait for Django to install in our virtual environment. So here it said that our Django package is successfully installed. So let's clear the terminal and start creating our first project in this workspace. So here we have Django admin, as you know, guys, the command that creates the project or starts a Django project. So we can just say start project here, and we can call our project dog Django. Of course, I need to add this dot so that it cannot create, other directories inside this folder. So we can have this inside the root, and we can see the manage.py and other file dependencies that Django comes with within this folder instead. So let's hit enter. As you can see now, we have Django and manage.py and our virtual environment. So let's run the project to verify everything is working fine. So here we can say just Python manage.py run server. Right, so everything is running properly here. So to make sure that everything is running, so let's follow this link. So of course you can see here we have the Django server running properly. We have this message, the install works successfully. Congratulations. So let's go back to VS Code and start, our process of Dockerizing our file. So now that what we need to do as a first step in Dockerizing our Django project is to start with creating a Docker file. So now that we have a running Django project, so we need to containerize it. And Dockerfile is like a recipe that tells Docker how to build, our application container. So let's go to create this file together. So we can call this Dockerfile here. And as you can see, we have here Docker icon for use. That means we are using a Docker dependency here. So let me walk you through the content of this file and what we're going to have here. So the first thing is that we need to tell Docker to use an official lightweight Python image as the base for our container. So to do this, let's type this from Python. And here we can choose any base image that we can use. So normally I will use 3.12. Of course, it's slim because it should be lightweight for our base, for our container. And let's put here a single command just to to explain to you guys what this line of code used for. So here it's used for using the official, Python image, let's say, as the base. Hope this command is clear for you guys. And then the next step is setting the directory where all subsequent commands will be run inside the container. Because we will install our project in another machine. So we will follow all the steps that we will gonna do in order to install this project in our local machine. So that's why we need to set the working directory so all the commands can be run inside this container. So in order to do this, we have here called work there. And work there, it follows with the path of the app. So here we have app, you know, and this will, let me add another command here. So this command, we can say this comment, we can put here set the working directory to, or maybe in the container, right? And then the third step is we have to copy the dependencies the project have in our own machine. So let's say our project has Django, has uh, any other packages, Twilio, etc. So we should write, a requirement.txt file where we can install these dependencies if we want to get our project up and running locally. So we need to do the same as well for our Docker image. So here, let's write a requirement file .txt, right? And this requirement file will contain some dependencies that we're going to use for this tutorial. So we have Django, and also we have a package by which we can use or maybe we can do that later on, but I think it's better to keep it later in this video. So let's start with Django instead. So here we have to copy the requirement file that we just created now. It contains our project dependencies. We need to copy it into our container. In order to do this, all we need to do is say copy, and then we can give the path to this file. So copy requirement.txt. Since this file is located within the same directory. So I'm sorry here, guys. I should put it here inside move, right? So, and then we have here, and the same as well for Dockerfile. I'm sorry. Okay, great. So that's for requirement.txt file, and we have to put it inside the app directory. So here, let's put, copy the requirement file, for example. Okay, sorry guys. And then the last, not least, is installing these dependencies, right? And in order to do this, we have a command called run, and this function will tell Django, or sorry, tell Docker to install all dependencies listed in requirement.txt file. So let's do this. And in order to do that, we can just use the run command here. So we can just say pip install like we do locally. And we can use the same command that we use for installing the dependencies from the requirement files. So we can just say here requirement.txt. And after this, we might need something else here. We need a flag. And the purpose of using this flag is to prevent caching to save space. So in order to do this, we can just use this flag. It's called no cache directory. That means views, so it doesn't create a directory for us to save this files. So in order to save space in our Docker image here. So that's for the requirement .txt file. So let's put here a comment that describes and explains what this command is used for and what it does. So here we can just say to simply install dependencies. Great. So that's for the SAP that install dependencies. Later on, we need to copy all the project files into the container. So in order to do this, we should use a command called copy. And then we have to provide the root directory where everything exists, and then we can put app here. So this will copy all the project files into the container. So let's put here a comment that said copy the entire project. In the entire project, the apps of the Django project, settings.py, URLs, everything. And let's say here into the container to make it more clear. Great. So that's for the SAP, and then we will need to tell Docker which port to make accessible from outside the container. So we need to expose our Django app in the port that will be running on. And in order to do this, we should use a command called expose. And this command we can follow. It tells, as I said before, Docker which port to make it accessible from outside the container to run the Django application. So here, of course, we're going to use 8000 as always. So let's put here expose, let's say the port, for example, the app runs on. I hope that's clear. All right. So after this, there is one more step left in this image. And this step is so important because it specifies the command to start the Django server when the container runs. So in order to do this, we have to use the command cmd. And cmd here, we can just put, for example, Python, so to specify what needs to be done, the command that needs to be run in order to run the server. So we have Python, we have manage.py file, and we have the command run server. And of course, here we can just specify host and the port. Sorry, here. Great. So that's the last step, and not least in Dockerfile. So sorry, guys, I forget here the comment. So here we can just say, for example, run the application. Much more clear. Great. So that's all for this Docker file. And now let's go to the next step. And the next step here is and that's really obvious. When we build an image, we need a Docker Compose file. So Docker Compose, it helps us manage multi-container applications. So we create Docker compose file in the root directory as Docker file. So in order to do this, let's create this file, docker compose YAML. And this file has, separate parts. Each part of this serves a purpose. So let's start first with the version, which we'll use to specify the compose file version. So since we are using Python 3.12, we can do also the same for version of the compose file. So we can just say version here 3.9 or 3.12, sorry. And then we can define our services. So the services are the containers that the app runs. So here we have a single service we're gonna use, or maybe two services later. If time allows, we can use, database. But now let's start with the web service. So the web service will be, in that format. So we can have web. We can define our service, but by the way, you can rename it the way you want. You can choose front end, you can choose back end. It depends on your own project. So here, the web, it needs, something that tells Docker to build a container. So since web is a container, is a service, we need to tell Docker to run it. So in order to do this, we need to use another key here in this YAML file called build. And inside build, we have to choose the current directory. And in order to do this, we just need to set dot. And after that, we can specify the ports, which maps port 8000 in our machine to port 8000 inside the container. So here, we're gonna have this. So we can just put here dash, and then we can put 8000 and 8000 for the app to run. After this, we can define volumes. And the volumes, it will, yes, are so important. So you can link our project folder to the container, which can enable live updates. So in order to do this, let's put volumes here as well in another key. And we can give, the path to our app directory, which is, as always, dot here and app. So after this, we need a command that we need to specify to run inside the container. So this is performed by another key called command. So here we can just say python manage.py run server, and then we can put, 0 for the host and the port as well. So that's for the Docker Compose file and for isolating our project environment into separate containers. For now, we are using only one container, which is web, but later on we can use database. Maybe we might have in the Django project, or maybe we might have a full stack project where we have front end, back end, database. So it means we have three services and three containers here. So we save this file, and now let's build and run our Dockerized app. Now we are ready to build and run this Dockerized app since we have all all the dependencies set. So first, let's get started by building the Docker image. So in order to do this, let's run this command. So here, let me kill the terminal, kill the server, and say docker compose build. So this command will build the Docker image for us. And since, yes, that's normal because I'm not opening Docker desktop here. It depends on dependencies. So, oh yes, so here it said the attribute version is obsolete. It will be ignored. Please remove it to avoid potential confusion. Mhm. Let's put here. It's not that. So this is Docker desktop in general. So Here it's starting Docker engine. It might take time. Let's maximize the screen here. And as you can see here, we have the list of containers, images, and once we build up our containers and images, we can see everything listed here. So let's get started with the image first, and let's run the command now again. So here it's gonna move and build our image. So it's gonna take a bit of time, of course, depends on the PC configuration. But let's wait and see. So you can see here for the first tab, we have senior content, and wait a moment. So as the commands finish building the image, you can see here it follows and goes along with our Docker file. So it creates, Docker compose file. So it creates for us, all we need for building this image, copy.app. So here, and then it finishes, building the image for us. So if you go back to images in Docker desktop, you can see our image now is listed, which means our image is built successfully now. So the next step is to build or to start the container. In order to do this, all we need to do is to run this command, docker compose, sorry, docker compose app. So this command will run and start the container for us. So let's run it, wait it here, should wait for a moment. And now everything is running. So if we navigate to, like we said before, we kill the server. So now if we navigate to the same route, so let's say here, here's we can get this application running, and the difference now is that we run our application through Docker, not through Django server. So that's the only difference, which means everything now is running properly in our machine. So if we go back to our list of containers, you can see here we have one container called Django that contains web on service, and that means the container that we have here. So that's for our first container in the app, and we want to do something else next, which is having another container for taking care of our own database. So in order to do this, and before we do this, I think let's go for that. And before we can talk about the other step that we can add as well, which is the database configuration. So for now, as you know, guys, uh, the Django settings, it comes with this database configuration that refers to SQLite. So it comes as default. So we want to change that to PostgreSQL database instead. And in order to do this, let's define this immediately in our Django or in our docker-compose.yml file. In order to do that, all we need to do is to go back to the Docker Compose file and define our own use web or our new container, and we can call this something like database. So here we can have just something like DB for doing this, and we can also put the image to specify it here. So we can just say Postgres, for example, 13, and then we can choose the environment. So this environment includes all the credentials of our own database. So the first thing here, we can have Postgres user. So feel free, guys. So I'm going just to choose random credentials here. We can call this user. And then we have, sorry, guys. And then we can have, another credential that we are gonna have. So Postgres user, we can put here Postgres password, and we can assign it to password too simply. And after this, we can specify the name of our database. So here we can just say Postgres, for example, DB. So let's put here Postgres, and we can call our database, for example, my database. That'll be better. So of course, we need to set the volumes too, like we did for the first container. So in order to do that, we can just say volumes. And volumes here, to find them, all we need to do is we have to persist data between container restart. And in order to do that, we can, you know, use Postgres here and underscore data. After this, we can just specify the var, lib, the path to the volume, and PostgreSQL data. So this way we will persist data between container restarts. So I can put this as a comment here so you guys can remember the purpose of using this here. So data between container restarts. I think it's better. Okay, it's more clear. Great. So after that, we can, put the Postgres data as a variable here because think of it like a variable that we're gonna use later for defining our own volumes. So in order to do that, we will put everything here for volumes. So all we need to do is just say, okay, volumes here and put Postgres data. Hope that is clear, but let me do, another review here for the file, starting from the changes that we just added. So here, like I said before, the DB service uses the official PostgreSQL Docker image. The environment section setups the database user and password. It setups the database credentials. The volumes section, it ensures that PostgreSQL data persists even if the container is restarted. And then we can add something more useful as well, which is, I think it's important, I miss it here, is depends on, because we need to say our web service starts after the database service. So in order to do this, we should define this section in our web service here. So after the command, we should say depends on, and then we can define what the service is depending on, which is the database. That's great. So here, like I said, the volumes here section ensures that PostgreSQL data persists even if the container is restarted. So, and after that, I added this depends on to tell Docker that this option ensures the web service that we have here, the web container, starts after the database service, which is listed here. So that's all we have here for now when it comes to docker-compose.yml. After this, we need to update our settings.py. Like I said earlier, we should change these settings to use PostgreSQL instead. So let's keep engine, data use backend, SQLite, but here we're gonna put PostgreSQL instead. And after this, we can define the name of our own database, which is my database. So here, I'm gonna put my database. That's the name that we give it. So let's put here single quotes. And after that, we have user key, which means so we called user. And later on, we have password. So we can also set the same password here. So we do this just for the application to run locally because the one will run in production or in other machines. But if we want to run this locally, we should define these settings too. So here the host, as always, is the database. So, and after this, we can just put or select the port or define the port as well. So as always, we have 543 and 2. So here the host is service name of database container in general. So we need to do this because we have to define the service name. Docker compose use it, so which is DB, and that's why I put DB here. Okay. That's great. So now let's start applying our database migration. Since we have a new database for attached to our project, we have to apply database configurations. So after configuring the database, we need to apply the migrations, like I said, to set up the database schema. So, and normally, in order to do that, we should run this command. So let's go back to terminal here. Have a lot of errors. We're gonna fix that later on. Um, great. So it's gonna stop here. And after this, we can just wait a moment. Okay, great. So here we have an error that said loading psycobj or psycobj module. So of course, since we are using PostgreSQL, we need to include this in our requirement.txt file. So in order to include that, there is no PostgreSQL like this, but there is a package called here's to binary. Uh, that takes care of the PostgreSQL setup and connection to Django project. So let's save this file as well, and let's go back to docker-compose.yml. And here, like I said, we should apply migrations since we are linking our project to a new database. So here we can run this command, docker-compose run web python manage.py migrate. So this command runs the migration process inside the container. So in order to do that, let's build it first. And of course here, messages port, it said services volumes must be a mapping. Uh, run web here, python manage.py migrate. So before we get started, let's run first, or let's stop the containers because I think we ensure that the changes we have here should take effect. So maybe we need to restart our Docker containers after modifying Docker compose YAML file, since we update some configurations here like I highlighted earlier. So let's do Docker compose down first. Okay, so I don't know what that means here for Docker run with Python manage.py migrate. Stopped here. Services volumes must be a mapping. So it means something here. I need to fix it. So I need to go back to volumes. Maybe I defined it. Yes, that's yeah, I think I should put it. I'm sorry, guys. I didn't that clearly here. So let's run again the command migrate again. So here we have the same problem. So volumes must be a mapping. Um, I think I put that here in the right place. So database here for volumes, and it doesn't even specify the line here. So we have volumes there. Postgres data, PostgreSQL data there, but volumes here, it's already a Postgres data normally. So volumes here for the database and services. Mm, even for volumes above is also defined clearly. I think there is like something wrong here that needs to be. Mm-hmm. Yeah, since it said it's must be a mapping, maybe I have to define this in exactly. Yes, because I forget that. Oh, see, man, you see, guys, 1 years that makes me waste that time, but I'm sorry. I think it's a good learning experience together because normally we should set that to define that the volumes is a mapping, so it's not string or any value like this here. So if I run the command again, so run Python migrate, you can see now it's you know running and pulling the changes. So I'm gonna be waiting for a moment now until this will finish, applying the migrations. So here, as we finish applying the migrations, there was an error that said error loading scouch2 or scouch module here. So I think if we go to our Docker image, we have pip install requirement.txt file where we highlighted that. But normally what we need to do first, we have to do Docker compose down in order to stop the container, and then we can install, you know, the new dependency in our here. So now we're gonna wait for this. And after this, we can do docker compose build to incorporate any changes to the configuration. So in order to do that, we can just say docker compose build. Of course, this might take a little time as always. And this will install, as you can see, uh, the latest, package that we added to requirement.txt file. So we're gonna wait for a moment. And and you can see now everything had been installed. So if we go ahead with all the packages, you can see, so it's installed things correctly. So now let's run our command to apply the migrations. Since, the first time we run it, it doesn't, recognize scopus binary. So in order to do this, let's run the same command again and wait until it's near. So you can see here the migration have been applied successfully. So now let's run the container and, oh, sorry, let's restart all the containers after we build them with Docker Compose build. So we have now to restart the container in order to run the application and apply the changes. So as always, we will say Docker Compose app. So this will restart the services, including PostgreSQL container that we have here. And also our Django app should now be connected to the PostgreSQL database. So let's go to the browser, and here we can see if we restart and run the application, so everything is running properly. So that's all we have to do in order to Dockerize a Django project. So we start with a web service, and then we start with database container. So I hope this video or this tutorial is helpful for you guys to learn together how to Dockerize an empty or fresh Django project. It's considered to be a good practice to Dockerize your Django project from beginning. So with the database configuration completed and the containers restarted, so our Django application now should be, like you see, connected to PostgreSQL database. So you can you find, the link to the source code below. So this setup will allow us to scale and deploy our application efficiently while ensuring that database is properly configured for production. So if you need any help, if you have any questions, let me know in the comments below. You can find the link to the source code, as I said, the link to the official documentation of Docker and how to install it in the description below. So thanks for watching and see you in future episodes. Bye for now.